Today, we're going to ascend the Temple Mount.
That's insane, we actually made it through!
And we're going to climb the famous Eastern Gate.
Wow, this is amazing!
We had no idea that this was even possible, and we've never seen anyone else ever climb it before.
Wow!
And in addition, after meeting the adorable Temple Mount cat, we're going to pass by a gigantic mountain of debris that looks like just a pile of rubble, but in fact, it is the remains of an illegal excavations that contain treasure of archaeological artifacts from the time of King Solomon.
Look at all this, I can't even imagine how old this is.
But before we get there, we're going to have to go through a crowd like we've never seen before in our lives, because we had no idea that today is Jerusalem Day, a day which is very likely to cause serious civil unrest on Temple Mount.
No, they blocked it.
Okay, so this video is going to be very different from the rest of our videos because we did not want to write any scripts or make any big editing production out of this. What we want to do is simply show you what we found and what went on.
So somehow we made it to Jerusalem on Jerusalem Day. We didn't know it's going to be Jerusalem Day, but it is. And there's about 1 million people here. Well, I don't know if it's 1 million, but it definitely feels like it.
And what better way to do this than our Unscripted series, where we take you on a journey with us through raw footage and zero theatrics. Well, maybe just a little theatrics. So here we are with our friends Jeremy and Jocelyn going through Jerusalem on a beautiful day. But we had no idea that today is actually the Jerusalem Day. This is the day that commemorates the reunification of East Jerusalem with West Jerusalem. This is following the Six-Day War, so it's a very political day. It can be seen as an amazing event, but at the same time it causes a lot of turmoil in Jerusalem between the Israeli citizens and Palestinians who live in East Jerusalem. Everybody we know says you don't go to Jerusalem on Jerusalem Day, but we had no idea, and this is when our friends arrived here, and so here we are. And we're going to make another video about Jerusalem Day that is entirely different, but in this video we're going to focus on what happened on Temple Mount. So as we are coming to the Temple Mount area, we're seeing this giant line, and we realize it's going to take a while until we're able to enter it. And as I'm passing through this line, I'm noticing this person standing here and speaking to somebody, and it is no one else but Yehuda Glick.
Psalm 132. He chose Zion, and he desired that it should be his throne. That's our quote.
Yehuda Glick, he's a politician and activist, so he does a lot of stuff that pertain to expanding Jewish access to the Temple Mount. But Rhoda and I just want to steer away from politics in our videos, but it was still interesting to see him here on Jerusalem Day, first in line to ascend the Temple Mount. Regardless, Rhoda and I and our friends are all the way somewhere in the back of the line, and it's gonna take us about 45 minutes to an hour of wait time until we're able to enter. And after waiting for about an hour, we were finally able to pass through and start the ascension.
That's insane, we actually made it through!
So, there is an actual dress code for the Temple Mount. That's right, women should cover their knees and shoulders, so Rhoda brought a shawl, while men must wear long pants and t-shirts at the very least. That's why Jeremy and I purchased long baggy pants, these black ones, in Jerusalem market for like 15 shekels. They're really cheap, it was like $5.
This is for Ben, right?
What are we doing? Wait.
We're gonna do like a new kids dance.
Once we go in there, no more dancing.
This officer did not seem to be very excited about our dancing, but we totally get it. They have to keep order here, so we had to dial it down. And you know, some people might be watching this and saying, you know, it's not appropriate to dance as you go up to the Temple Mount, you should be serious. But you know, when we read the Bible, think about King David, who was dancing as he was bringing the Ark of the Covenant back to Jerusalem, and all the joy that followed that. Think about all of the Israelites in the Old Testament who would come year after year to give their tithing, and it says, you shall spend that money for whatever your heart desires, for oxen, sheep, wine, similar drink, or whatever your heart desires. You shall eat there before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice, you and your household. Can you imagine? This is probably one of the largest parties ever done in history of humanity. Just think of all of the hundreds of thousands of people flocking into Jerusalem and having an amazing time. Yeah, this is a whole different subject, tithing, but can you imagine churches today saying, hey, you want to tithe? Take that money and spend it whatever your heart desires. And speaking of spending on whatever your heart desires on, you don't really need to buy pants like we did, because at the entrance they provide you with clothing.
This becomes big cover. This becomes some more cover in your skirt. Clothing not acceptable. This becomes some more cover.
She said you need this skirt?
Clothing not acceptable.
Now we thought that Rhoda had enough clothing on her, but apparently the guards at the entrance said no, you still have to put another shawl on top, so it was a double shawl for Rhoda.
There's an opening the size of the pants. Man, for you as well. Man, tight clothing not acceptable, man.
But here's the catch, men and women get the same skirt. Here's another time when we came here and I did not have long pants and I did not buy any, so they gave me this long skirt for men. And it might look funny to the Western world, but the reality is that this type of robes have been worn by men for thousands of years. In fact, some cultures, they still wear them today.
So this never had made more sense to me as now. Gird up your loins. So in the Bible it says that Elijah girded up his loins and outran Ahab. And then also God says, Job, gird up your loins and I'll ask you like a man.
In 1 Kings 18, Elijah girded up his loins and ran fast way ahead of Ahab. In other words, girding up his loins helped him run faster. And I finally got to experience this for myself.
I can barely move it farther than this. So I gotta gird up my loins and then I can run.
It is very difficult to walk fast in this skirt, let alone run, which is impossible. And believe me, I have tried. Most women know this obviously, but I've never experienced this in my life until today. So the only way to walk fast or run is to lift up the robe and secure it to the waist, which in other words is gird up the loins.
And that's why Peter says, gird up the loins of your mind so that you may understand what? I don't remember what he said. I need your help.
So Peter actually says, therefore, gird up the loins of your mind, be sober, and rest your hope fully upon the grace that is to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. And this is so amazing because Peter is basically just saying a metaphor. He's saying, remove whatever robe or a veil that you have over your mind that prevents you from fully resting upon the grace of Jesus Christ. And this is just so marvelous because the whole chapter there and the whole context of what Peter is saying is that we're eternally secure in the salvation of Yeshua. It was a marvelous reminder for me and Rhoda that those who put their trust in Yeshua should have no doubt in their salvation. We can fully rest upon His grace. What a promise, what a life, and what a God.
Once again, we have only 25 minutes like last time.
Oh my goodness.
So right there, we're going to it.
Let's go there.
As we were going through the Temple Mount, there's noticeable tension. The tension between the Jews and the Palestinians. You can see the Jews dancing outside the gates, wanting to enter the temple, but they cannot without going through the special security, which we just went through, but the wait is so long.
And I said, why do we have to wear this? And he said, so we can recognize you.
Yeah, that you are a tourist and not part of this.
We just can't describe in words how amazing it is to be up here. I mean, this is where they believe that the first and the second temple stood. This is so significant. This would also be where Abraham was about to sacrifice his son Isaac, and also be the same location that David bought from Araunah, the Jebusite, the threshing floor in the story after God brought judgment on the Israelites. It is fascinating. If this is the spot, it's amazing.
Wow. So this is the Dome of the Rock. Inside of it, we'll go in. Hopefully, inside of it there is a rock where I believe the Ark once stood, and the temple stood right above this. And there's a new theory that has some great archaeological evidence that the actual temple was slightly over there.
Okay, so some of you might say, wait a second, this is not where the Temple Mount stood. This is where Fort Antonius stood, and the Temple Mount was a bit lower than this area was in the city of David. Now, that is a famous theory that has been grown in the past recent years. However, Rhoda and I have not yet had the chance to make a deeper research on it. We've done some research on the surface, it's an interesting theory, but we have not dug deeper into it. There's still so much evidence supporting that it happened here. This is the Temple Mount. However, we do plan on making a video about the other locations sometime in the future. But before we do, we wanted to ask you guys, what do you think? Do you think Temple Mount is here, or do you think the temple stood below it in the city of David? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and also like and subscribe to this video so that we can produce more content like this and make this video in the future according to your suggestions.
Good girl. What are your political inclinations up here?
So friendly.
Are you the peacemaker? explore.
Okay, all right. Ow, don't bite me. And no, go out there.
Okay, I've been waiting to return to this spot for a few years because a friend of mine said that he noticed that there are arches right here that could be the original arches or entryways into the rooms of the instrument players. Potentially. What if? So according to the Bible, there would be the Levites who would work and serve at the temple and fill all kinds of positions. One of them were the instrument players. So one theory is, what if those arches right here, they are the rooms for the instruments, just like the Bible says?
There it is.
This is very interesting. Can you imagine going into those rooms, excavating? Obviously, it's not possible right now. They'll probably like start a World War III, but just imagine what kind of treasure we can find in those rooms. Somebody's got to get some permission from everybody here to go in there and see what's inside. That would just be amazing. Next, we're going to the Eastern Gate. However, before we get there, we're going to pass through this backyard with a lot of debris. It kind of looks all sporadic and just weird, but it is actually not just trash. What this is a mountain of treasure. Yes, it doesn't look like it, but here's what happened. A few decades ago, the Temple Mount Authority decided to make another entrance to the Temple Mount, and so they started digging the ground. But that is illegal because nobody's supposed to dig where there's archaeology and just throw stuff away. But they've done it anyway, and so it was kind of a legal operation, and it was stopped eventually by the court and by the Israel authorities and by archaeologists. It was a big story. But then something ironic happened. The attempt to legally excavate and do an entrance kind of turned into a blessing because the workers took all this trash and they put it into dumps outside of Temple Mount and also here on the Temple Mount. And the dump that was outside of Temple Mount is now no longer in the authority of the Temple Mount administration. Instead, it's now in the land of Israel. And so archaeologists took that pile of debris and they started excavating it. And they're finding artifacts from the first temple period and from the second temple period. It is an unbelievable pile of archaeological treasure.
Can you imagine how much treasure is in here? Just imagine, like all those rocks, just broken. So if you bring a metal detector here, you immediately start finding Roman coins from time of David with like priests' names and things.
And that's what we see right here. And if you maybe just get closer, you might be able to spot something from like King Solomon's time. Maybe a little step or a marble piece that he stood on, or even more exciting, a little piece of marble that Jesus would have stood on when he walked here. It's kind of cool and fascinating to see.
My goodness, look at all this. I can't even imagine how old this is. Look at this marble.
This is old.
How old is this?
It could be from the second temple period. Okay, so think about this. This is the Eastern Gate, and this is where the prince will walk through the Eastern Gate, and until he comes, it will be shut, it says. And so they did shut it, and on the other side is the graveyard, tombs. So, yeah, we'll go there, yeah.
And that's the valley of the Kidron Valley, the Valley of Death.
I'm going to check what's out there.
Finally, we make it to the Eastern Gate. But this time, we're not just gonna look at the Eastern Gate, but we've noticed that there is a walkway on its side that leads you onto steps that take you on top of it to the Eastern Gate wall.
It would be so cool if we can get up there and take a look.
We had no idea that this is even possible to get up there.
Wow. This is amazing.
We had no idea that you could go up those steps. This is very, very exciting. And as far as we know, I've never seen anyone else do this before.
Okay, this is dangerous. You can fall. Wow. Oh. Careful, don't go there, sweetheart. You can careful wires and stuff.
You can see the Garden Gethsemane from here.
No way.
Okay, we've noticed this only after we got home, but this is really incredible. Look at the decorated stone in the wall. Obviously, it came from another place and was reused in the Ottoman times to build this top section of the wall, but it is just fun to think that this stone was originally used somewhere else, and who knows, maybe even part of the original wall or the temple. This is very sketchy. Please do not come up here. There are no railings, there's no safety net, there's nothing. If you slip, if you step on the wrong pebble, you're going down 30 feet onto rocks. Please don't come here.
So that's the guard?
Yep. Right next to the church, or behind it, is a garden.
Is this the valley here then?
Yeah, we're going there next.
You see the graves?
Oh, wow.
You might be thinking, well, it's not a good example that you're up there and telling us not to go. Well, we took the risk, we filmed it, so that you can see it through our lens and not have to take the same risks.
This is amazing. Would you like to come? And now you can come and I'll, oh yeah? And I can maybe protect you here just in case something. There you go.
And there was this lady that also wanted to take pictures, but I stayed up there holding on to the pole and making sure the other hand is ready to catch her in case she trips on one of the wires and falls down. Okay, so we are standing on top of the Eastern Gate. This is the Golden Gate. It is believed that this is the gate that the Messiah will go through when he returns in the future. You can learn a lot more about it from our video we've done about the Temple Mount. It's called Untold Archaeology of the Temple Mount, Rare Footage. Make sure to check it out, a lot of fascinating information in there. But this time, we were just excited to be able to go on top of the Eastern Gate and look down and see some of the artifacts.
That was a cool treat.
And a big cat down there. He's following it. Yeah. He's hiding down there.
So let's try to exit that gate because then we'll be straight by Lion's Gate.
Okay, so we've only been given 1 hour to be on Temple Mount, but because like most of that hour spent on standing in line, we were only able to be here for a few minutes and now it's time to leave. But usually you have to leave from about the adjacent gate to the one you enter, because there are many gates to Temple Mount, but those are mostly for Muslims. Anybody who is non-Muslim can only enter through one gate and then leave through the next one. But we were so far from that gate and we were kind of running out of time and we were supposed to leave already. So what we've done instead this time is depart from the closest gate to us, which is the Lion's Gate. So we thought if they stop us and tell us to go all the way back, we'll do it. But at least we're trying to be respectful to the time they've given us and leave as soon as possible.
Very cute. Did the heart.
So thankfully, it worked. There was no issues, we were able to depart from a different gate all the way on the other side of the Temple Mount.
Yeah, but later.
Wait, where do we go from
Right there, Lion's Gate.
Okay, let the car pass first.
We hope you've enjoyed this video and it was a blessing to you. This day was one of the most exciting days we've had in Jerusalem and we can't wait to show you more footage from Jerusalem in the weeks to come. Until then, may God bless you and like always,
And the best is yet to come.
Amen.